Steve Perry's new interview with the CBS News and Journey, how do they tie in? We'll talk about it coming right up. Steve Perry's got an interview with CBS coming up in October, but what does that have to do with Journey? We'll talk about it coming right up. Hello everybody, Gary Stuckey here once again, bringing you information about Steve Perry and Journey and all that good stuff. Man, are you excited about Steve Perry? Are you as excited as I am? I bet you are. You know, yesterday was a big day for Steve Perry fans. We heard about Steve's new interview and CBS, and it's going to happen. They've just reported that it's going to happen on October the 7th on CBS Sunday morning with Jane Pauley. Hey, looking forward to that. That's exciting. You know, all this started, I believe, whenever Steve Perry was mentioned by Neal. He kept saying, you know, he'd like to work with Steve. And we've all been speculating this whole summer. And I've been saying that Steve was going to, you know, possibly, you know, get back with Journey. And Neal and Jonathan Cain have been reaching out. Well, Neal has been mentioning having that coffee and talking to Steve and maybe working on a R&B side project. He said that he didn't think that Steve was going to come back to Journey because, you know, kind of saying because he wouldn't be able to hit those notes. I mean, that's what he was, you know, alluding to. That it might be too hard for Steve, you know, because if he came back to Journey, he had to sing those songs. Maybe they'd go on tour, maybe, and he would have to sing all those, you know, high notes. So he was kind of giving Steve Perry an out, you know, or an excuse. And I don't think he's been talking to Steve here lately. But I think he's just letting Steve know, hey, man, I still want to work with you, but I'm not going to obligate you to try to work with, you know, Journey if you can't hit those notes anymore. You know, some would say that's kind of a slap in the face, but I think it was Neal. I like Neal a lot. So I think he was just trying to say, hey, here's an invitation. I'll leave it up to you. I don't know, you know, from what I've heard, I don't know if you can hit those notes anymore. So no pressure, man, no pressure, you know. So, but the very next day after that tweet, Steve shows up with Toad the Wet Sprocket, and his voice sounds great. I mean, he's hitting notes that I haven't heard him hit in a long time. So, so I was thinking about that, and his voice sounds great. And then I got to thinking about that date. October the 7th is when Steve is going to make an appearance on CBS Sunday morning. So I was thinking, what's up with that date? I kept trying to, you know, remember. Then I realized that's the day Journey's last concert date takes place. The tour wraps up for Journey on October the 7th. So it made me think, was that planned? You know, was that on purpose? Hey, all speculations, people. Everybody has their own opinion, but I think, you know, it's almost like it was set up. So, you know, he didn't want to steal the thunder of Journey, so he waited to the last day. You know, he probably would have waited longer if he could have, but that was like the first Sunday, you know, before, you know, after the tour or whatever. It just worked out that way, but I think he didn't want to steal any thunder from Journey, but he's keeping that Don't Stop Believing movement alive. I mean, it's like a roller coaster, of course, up and downs, but it's also a train that's steady going through this whole summer. It's like every time you turn around, there's information with Neal, John, and Steve, and they're trying to get him back to the band and reaching out. So, you know, Jonathan Cain's book and Neal talking about Steve and getting back, and Arnell saying that he's might be ready to, you know, go back home. That's okay with him. And then all of a sudden Steve comes out and starts singing these notes after Neal had questioned his singing ability. So it's almost like, you put all this together, and there's people out there, I know, it's never going to happen. So I'm happy for Steve and his new album coming out, and the interview is exciting, but we know about that, and I'm just giving you another thing to think about. Is Steve preparing, for Journey, for that reunion after this album and after the tour? Is that something to think about? We shall see. But I do think that October 7th, that was a special day for a special reason. And another prediction I will make, speculation of course, is that Neal is soaking all this in. He's been very quiet over on Twitter and places like that about Steve. He's soaking all this in, and he's going, you know. And you know what? I think Steve might be thinking it's time for that coffee. And I think some news that we'll be hearing pretty soon is that Neal and Steve are sitting down for some coffee and talking about some things. Who's to say? When is that going to happen? I don't know. When's Steve's album going to come out? I'm thinking it's coming out probably before that October 7th date. I also think there's going to be a single release very soon. Hey man, we could wake up tomorrow morning and turn on the radio and it might be on there, because that's how Steve is, spontaneous, and you never know. Hey, we can't stop believing, right? So you don't stop believing in Steve Perry or Journey. Hey, and a special thanks to everybody out there. Thank you to Dave and the other Dave on the Steve Perry videos, keeping Steve Perry's name out there. Thanks to all of the fans out there that like to talk about Steve Perry over on Twitter. Everybody's excited. Hey, thank y'all. It's like a big family. Thanks, everybody. Don't stop believing.